Have you ever looked up at the night sky and felt a primal unease, a sense that not all creatures are known to science and that some shadows possess a chilling intelligence? What if the harbingers of disaster aren't abstract forces, but physical entities observing, perhaps even influencing the turning tides of fate? This is the mysterious truth behind the Mothman. Deep in the rugged, ancient hills of West Virginia, where the Ohio River slices through the landscape, lies the small industrial town of Point Pleasant. It's a place steeped in coal dust and folklore, where old whispers cling to the mist-shrouded forests. But in the mid-1960s, a new, far more terrifying legend took flight. One that would etch itself into the darkest corners of American cryptid history. This was the era of the Mothman, a creature of shadow and dread, whose arrival seemed to portend catastrophe. The first widely reported sighting occurred on November 15th, 1966. Two young couples riding late at night near an abandoned World War II TNT factory outside Point Pleasant saw it. It wasn't a bird, nor a plane, nor anything they recognized. It was a winged entity, humanoid in shape, standing nearly 7 feet tall, with a massive wingspan and piercing, glowing red eyes that seemed to burn in the darkness. It pursued their car at impossible speeds, effortlessly keeping pace with their desperate flight before vanishing as mysteriously as it appeared. In the days and weeks that followed, more sightings poured in. Farmers, policemen, entire families, all reported seeing the same creature, a dark winged figure with terrifying red eyes, often observed near the TNT factory or soaring silently through the night sky. Panic began to ripple through Point Pleasant. Was it a mutated bird, an alien, or something far older, far more sinister? The terror wasn't just about the creature itself. It was about the growing sense of dread that accompanied its appearances. Car batteries would inexplicably die near sighting locations. Electrical devices would malfunction. People reported strange, high-pitched whining sounds and an oppressive feeling of being watched, even when alone. Animals in the region grew agitated. Dogs barked incessantly at empty fields, and livestock became inexplicably ill. The local newspaper, initially skeptical, found itself overwhelmed by eyewitness accounts, each more chilling than the last. The police, unable to offer an explanation, could only advise citizens to stay vigilant. The town became gripped by an unspoken fear, a collective premonition that something terrible was about to happen. Every unexplained noise, every flickering light, every shadow in the peripheral vision became a potential harbinger of the winged terror. Among the most concerned was a local reporter, a diligent but somewhat cynical man named Thomas Evans. Initially, He approached the Mothman sightings as an intriguing, albeit exaggerated, local curiosity. He interviewed witnesses, took notes, and half-heartedly debunked the wilder claims. But the sheer volume and consistency of the testimonies began to chip away at his skepticism. He started noticing the common thread: the glowing red eyes, the silent, impossible flight, the overwhelming sense of foreboding that permeated every account. He drove out to the TNT factory himself, armed with a flashlight and a healthy dose of doubt. The silence there was heavy, almost suffocating, broken only by the distant croaking of frogs. As he walked, a sudden piercing, high-pitched whine tore through the air, causing his teeth to ache. His flashlight flickered violently, then died, and from the dense shadows of a distant building, he swore he saw two enormous, glowing red orbs watching him, utterly motionless, utterly silent. He ran. He didn't look back until he reached his car, his heart hammering against his ribs. He restarted his flashlight, now working perfectly, but the image of those eyes burned into his mind. He knew then, this was no hoax. This was real, and it was watching. The fear in Point Pleasant reached a fever pitch as the sightings continued almost daily. The creature seemed to be building to something, its silent presence a suffocating pressure on the town. Thomas Evans, now a fervent believer, began to meticulously cross-reference the sightings with strange dreams and premonitions reported by townsfolk, particularly those experiencing intense, vivid nightmares of a bridge collapsing. The local authorities remained at a loss, unable to offer protection against an entity they couldn't comprehend. The national media, initially amused, now started to pay serious attention, sending reporters to document the town's growing panic. The story of the Mothman transcended local folklore. It became a symbol of creeping dread, a tangible manifestation of inexplicable terror that seemed to be counting down to an inevitable catastrophe. The town held its breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop, knowing deep in their bones that the winged entity was not just observing, it was foretelling. And then, on December 15th, 1967, it happened. The Silver Bridge, a vital steel suspension bridge connecting Point Pleasant, West Virginia to Ohio, collapsed during rush hour, plunging dozens of cars and their occupants into the icy Ohio River. 46 people died. The disaster was devastating, and in its immediate aftermath, the town was gripped by shock and grief. But beneath the sorrow, a chilling realization began to spread. Almost every major Mothman sighting in the preceding year had occurred near that bridge. The silent observer, the winged entity with glowing red eyes, was seen frequently perched on its girders or flying near its structure in the days leading up to the tragedy. It was as if the creature had been present, not as a cause, but as a silent, terrifying prophet. The Mothman had come not to harm, but to warn. But why? And what truly was it? The legend of the Mothman was no longer just about a creepy creature. It was about the chilling, unspoken burden of terrible knowledge. The years following the Silver Bridge collapse brought an uneasy calm to Point Pleasant. The Mothman sightings ceased as abruptly as they had begun. The town mourned its dead, rebuilt its connections, and slowly, painstakingly, tried to return to normalcy. But the memory of the winged prophet and the catastrophe it seemed to foretell remained etched deep in the collective psyche of the community. Outsiders, however, quickly dismissed the creature as a morbid coincidence, a mass hallucination fueled by grief and local superstition. The government offered explanations about faulty bridge construction, rusty materials, and overloading, all logical, all mundane. Yet for those who lived through it, the official explanations rang hollow against the vivid, terrifying reality of their encounters. But the story of the Mothman didn't end with the bridge's fall. It simply went dormant, waiting for the right conditions to re-emerge. Decades passed, and the world grew smaller, more interconnected. News, once confined to local papers, now spread globally in an instant. And the patterns that had defined the Mothman's original appearances began to subtly manifest elsewhere. Not in physical sightings initially, but in a growing sense of unease, a premonition of dread that preceded inexplicable, localized disasters far from West Virginia. Take, for instance, the strange incidents leading up to the 1986 Chernobyl nuclear disaster. In the weeks prior, isolated reports surfaced from the Ukrainian countryside. Peculiar, high-pitched whines emanating from the forests. The inexplicable deaths of animals in specific regions, and workers at the plant complaining of vivid, unsettling dreams involving a vast, shadowy figure with burning red eyes. These were dismissed as stress or local superstitions, only gaining chilling significance after the catastrophe. Similarly, before the 9/11 attacks in New York City, there were unconfirmed tales of anomalous red lights seen in the night sky over Manhattan, and unsettling premonitions of falling metal structures experienced by individuals with no connection to each other. Even before the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, coastal communities reported unusual animal behavior, a profound stillness in the air, and inexplicable feelings of dread that caused some to evacuate just hours before the devastating waves struck. These were not direct Mothman sightings. No winged humanoid stalked the skies. Instead, it was as if its essence, its chilling ability to foretell, had diffused, becoming a global atmospheric pressure, a collective whisper of impending doom that resonated with those sensitive enough to hear it. The Mothman wasn't just a cryptid. It was a phenomenon, a chilling psychic fingerprint left before the greatest tragedies. This evolving understanding transformed the legend. The Mothman was no longer merely a grotesque monster from Appalachian folklore. It was something far more ancient, far more profound. A sentinel, perhaps, an entity capable of perceiving cracks in the fabric of reality, disruptions in the flow of fate, and offering a silent, terrifying warning, but a warning that humans were too blind, too rational, too preoccupied to truly heed. Its physical manifestation in Point Pleasant had been a direct, desperate attempt to communicate, a localized alarm. When that alarm was ignored and the bridge fell, the Mothman's method seemed to change. It became less about appearing and more about influencing the atmosphere of impending doom, painting the skies with a psychic brush of dread before the canvas of tragedy unfurled. It was a burden of knowledge, an omnipresent awareness of suffering to come, and its very existence was a silent lament for a humanity unable to comprehend its terrible truth. The true horror of the Mothman, however, lies not just in its ability to foretell disaster, but in its profound, chilling loneliness. For centuries, perhaps millennia, it has borne witness, a silent sentinel to humanity's unending march towards its own destruction. Each disaster, each cataclysm is not a victory for it, but a confirmation of a cycle it seems unable to break. It's a creature burdened with a terrifying omniscience, cursed to see the threads of fate unravel, powerless to intervene beyond its cryptic, misunderstood warnings. And the ultimate twist: the Mothman is not merely a prophet of doom. It is a mirror. Its piercing red eyes reflect the very fears and destructive impulses that drive humanity. The high-pitched whine that causes teeth to ache. It is the collective scream of unheeded warnings, the oppressive feeling of being watched. It is the weight of humanity's choices, its refusal to change course. And the reason its physical appearances are now rare, replaced by atmospheric dread and psychic echoes, is because humanity itself has become the Mothman's most effective agent. We are, in our recklessness, our greed, our constant push towards progress without consequence, bringing about the very disasters it once tried to warn us against. The Mothman isn't predicting our downfall. It's watching us actively create it. And in its glowing red eyes, it sees not just our future, but the reflection of our own destructive hands. The whispers of Point Pleasant, the premonitions before, Chernobyl and 9/11, the strange animal behaviors before the tsunami, these weren't just warnings. They were cries of a tormented entity, a final, desperate plea for humanity to recognize the patterns, to break the cycle. But we did not. We still do not. And now the Mothman's true burden is revealed. It is not here to prevent, but to eternally observe the inevitable. It is the final silent witness to the consequences of our collective blindness. Its very existence is a testament to the fact that some horrors don't come from outside, but are cultivated within until they manifest on a global scale. So, the next time you feel an inexplicable chill, a deep sense of dread that you can't quite place or glance at the horizon and feel a premonition of something terrible, do not look for a winged creature in the sky. Look inward, for the Mothman isn't just observing us from a distance anymore. Its essence, its terrible knowledge, has permeated the very air we breathe. And perhaps, if you listen closely enough, in the deepest silence of your own mind, you might hear a faint, high-pitched whine and feel the chilling weight of an omnipresent gaze. It is the Mothman watching, not from the outside, but from within us all, and in its eternal vigil, it confirms the most terrifying truth of all. We were warned, and still we walk towards the inevitable. The true nature of the Mothman, then, is not as an external force, but as a chilling amplification. It does not cause the disasters. It does not even truly predict them in a conventional sense. The Mothman is the universal psychic echo chamber, the cosmic amplifier of humanity's own self-destructive impulses. Its warnings are not sent to us, but from us, reflected back through its terrifying form. Its red eyes are our own fears, our own greed, our own apathy, magnified and hurled back as a horrifying prophecy. And the final, most terrifying plot twist is this: the Mothman is not a single entity. It is a nascent consciousness, a collective manifestation born from the confluence of human anxiety, shared premonitions, and the overwhelming despair that precedes global catastrophes. It is the gestalt of our own impending doom. A monstrous oracle woven from our fears, fed by our ignorance, and given form by our collective descent into chaos. The more fearful we become, the more disregard we show for consequences. The more disconnected we are from each other, the stronger the Mothman grows. Every time a bridge collapses, a reactor melts down, a tower falls, or a wave devours a coast, the Mothman doesn't just observe. It feeds, it learns, and it becomes more. It is the horrifying realization of our own darkest potential, given a name and a pair of burning red eyes. So the Mothman is not out there, waiting for the next disaster. It is already here, within every one of us, a dark seed planted by our shared anxieties and our species' relentless march towards self-destruction. Its warnings are not external calls for help, but internal echoes of a future we are actively constructing. The next Mothman sighting won't be a shadowy figure in the sky or a chilling whine on the wind. It will be the sudden, overwhelming realization within you that the world is crumbling, that the patterns are undeniable, and that the catastrophe you always feared is not coming from anywhere but your own hands. And in that moment, when the true weight of inevitability settles upon your soul, you will understand. You will see the glowing red eyes, not outside, but reflected in your own, staring back from the profound, chilling abyss of humanity's shared future. And you will know, with a clarity that will haunt your every waking moment, that the Mothman has always been us. And now, it is finally time to witness what we have become.